Today, we're going to break down an incredible legal story that completely redefines who gets to be the leader of a traditional family enterprise. It's all about who gets to be in charge. And believe me, the answer to that question has changed a lot. So let's just start with that simple question. Who gets to be the boss of a traditional family business? It seems straightforward, right? But when you look at Indian family law, wow, the answer has completely flipped over the years. This very question is the whole reason we need to talk about what a Karta is. Okay, so let's get into it. Before we can appreciate just how huge this shift has been, we've got to get the basics down first. So what exactly is a Karta?
To put it simply, the Karta is the manager of what's called a Hindu undivided family, or an HUF. You can think of the HUF as a family that's treated as one single unit for legal and financial stuff. And the Karta? Well, the Karta is basically the CEO of that whole operation. And for a long, long time, this top job was reserved only for the senior-most male member.
And this is where another really important word comes in. Co-parsoner. A co-parsoner is anyone who gets a slice of the ancestral property pie just by being born into the family. And for so long, this was the very legal reason women were locked out of that top job. So take a look at this. This is basically our roadmap for the story. We start back in 1950 with a firm no. Then we see this rule get even stronger in 65. Then there's this weird little exception in 1976 that kind of hints at what's to come, leading all the way to a game-changing moment in 2015, which was finally locked in for good in 2023. Let's walk through it. All right, let's rewind all the way to the beginning. How did the courts first draw this line in the sand? How did they so clearly say that women were not allowed to lead? And this right here, this image perfectly captures that old way of thinking. What you're looking at are some of the source notes that lay out the traditional legal view. You don't have to look hard. The first line says everything, senior-most male member. The logic was simple, right? The court said that since a woman couldn't be a co-parsoner, she didn't have that birthright to the property, well, then there was no way she could be the Karta, the one who manages it all. And look, this wasn't just some old-fashioned idea. It was actual law. It all came from a major case back in 1950, Radhe Amal versus the IT commissioner. This one decision really set the stage for decades to come. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. 15 years later, in 1965, the courts doubled down in another big case. They ruled that even a widow couldn't step in and become the Karta. The door seemed locked, bolted, and completely shut. But then, something really unexpected happened. A tiny crack started to show in this solid legal ceiling, and you won't believe where it came from. So get this. In 1976, the Supreme Court drops this bombshell of a ruling in the case of Narendra Kumar Modi versus the Commissioner of IT. They said a minor male, a boy, could legally be the Karta. Think about that for a second. An adult woman couldn't be in charge, but a young boy could. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how could that even work? Well, there were a few conditions. The most senior man had to step aside, and the whole family had to agree to it. Then the boy would act as Karta through his guardian. But here's the kicker. Even if his own mother was his legal guardian, the one actually making all the decisions for him, she was still not legally the Karta. The title, the power, it all belonged to her son. All right, let's jump forward to the modern era, because this is where all those old rules get turned on their head. This is the part of the story where we see a huge, landmark shift, but finally gives daughters their rightful place at the head of the table. And you can see it right here in these newer notes from our source material. These are the cases that changed everything, the ones that rewrote the rulebook and paved the way for a new reality of gender equality. The case that was the real game changer was Sujata Sharma versus Manu Gupta, which went to the Delhi High Court in 2015. This was the moment someone finally stood up and successfully challenged that long-standing rule. And the decision they came to? Absolutely groundbreaking. The court said that a daughter, even a married daughter, can be the Karta of her father's family business, as long as she's the oldest surviving child. Suddenly, it wasn't about gender anymore. It was about seniority. Now, of course, a big change like this got challenged. But in 2023, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they upheld the decision. This was it. The change was solidified, making it the new undisputed law of the land. Okay, let's zoom out and just take in that big picture. We've gone on a legal journey that's stretched for nearly 75 years. So, what does it all really mean when you put it all together? I mean, just look at this contrast on the screen. The old rule from 1950 was painfully clear. Only the senior-most man gets the job. Women were shut out, period. The new reality, as of 2023, the eldest child gets the job, period. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. That's not just a change, it's a complete 180.
So, why is this such a big deal? While this journey from total exclusion to full inclusion, it isn't just some tiny legal update. It shows a massive, fundamental shift towards gender equality, right at the heart of the traditional Indian family and its finances.
So, I think the big takeaway here is that law isn't set in stone. It can and does evolve with society. And that brings us to a really interesting question to leave you with. Now that the law has made this huge leap forward on gender, what other traditional family rules do you think might be the next to change?